Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Herrick. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Manger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! They score! They score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 109 for Friday, September 9th, 2022. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring tips on planning harvest season, we are not going to be much help. This is American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Cece Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I am Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you are new to hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, we are still in off-season mode here, but we do have another big interview, a fun one, an educational one. Still would recommend, though, checking out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about later in the season, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out, so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes, and let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes trying to learn who to take in fantasy drafts because of their preseason performance. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey?
I mean, let's be honest. If you were really banking on the quarterback battle in Seattle between Geno Smith and Drew Lock as to your backup in fantasy, that must be either a really
you're either in
or
an insane person league that has like 60 teams and a super flex or something absolutely absurd, or you really have already lost.
Right. And these preseason battles, a lot of them are just active roster, like filling backup spots and stuff like that.
Or, their guys just, getting in some reps. Because sometimes, if you've been off for a long break, you forget to do simple little things like start the ticker before recording. So you need some preseason reps to make that happen.
Who would do that, though?
I know.
Like, who would...
So silly. Rookie mistake.
It's not like we've ever done that before.
Definitely not. We definitely are not re-recording this intro because we forgot to do that.
No, not at all.
Off-season mode, kids. It's real.
It's a real thing for sure. All right. So being the off-season, what we like to do here on the Farmstead is bring on guests to talk about the AHL, of course, because that's part of our podcast, is a major part, I would say, is AHL hockey. Last time, this gentleman was on our show. He was accepting an award that we were giving out, episode 100, the 2021-22 AHL Awards Show, General Manager of the Year. And
Mea Culpa Award.
And the Mea Culpa Award. Yes.
We didn't do GM of the Year. We only did Mea Culpa.
We did GM of the Year.
We did not do GM of the Year.
It has been a long off season.
Yeah, it has.
Thank you for the correction.
No
so
problem.
the Mea Culpa Award, the team that we underestimated the most coming into the regular season. And I think it worked out pretty well. GM for the Chicago Wolves, they kind of won the Calder Cup. I think, without further ado, let's bring on Chicago Wolves GM Wendell Young. Wendell, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, guys. Great to be back here. To continue our saga here of you guys giving us our organization honors. I like it.
I mean, it's an easy one to do when your team is as much of a wagon as they were last year, but a big offseason for you guys. So let's dive right into that right away. CC, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, first off, having to search for a new head coach after Warsofsky took the assistant job with the San Jose Sharks, hiring Brock Sheahan from the Chicago Steel, not only one of the most prominent franchises in the USHL, but also right in your own backyard, about 40 miles away in Geneva. Sheahan's second coach in the past few years to be plucked from the Steel. Greg Moore was hired by the Marlies back in December 2019. Now, thorough hiring processes. We've always appreciated that and praised that here on the Farmstead. So the question, it kind of begs itself, what led you to select Sheahan over, an internal promotion over guys like Patrick Dwyer and Bobby Nardella that have served as assistants under Warsofsky?
Well, first of all, Ryan Warsofsky, there was rumors of him being gone even before we were done our season. He did such a great job here over the last few years here and winning a championship. And he had a ton of interviews. And every time he did an interview, I was hoping it went really well, but not that well for him to come back. But we're excited for Wars. He deserves everything he gets. I think the biggest thing, he interviewed for a lot of head coaching jobs in the NHL. The biggest thing that he didn't have an experience in that aspect. So this is one of the things why he did go to San Jose as an assistant to get that experience, and he'll make the next step. He knows the game, great communicator, really good with his staff, really communicates with the staff. Now, you always hear about these communicators and you always he communicates with the players, but you got to communicate with your staff too. And that's what Ryan Warsofsky did. And that leads right into Brock Sheahan, a lot like Wars. I see, wants the guys to get better, skill wise. They want to make the guy better skill wise, system wise, but the communication factors there. And, Brock has head coaching experience. I went back to Ryan Warsofsky, Patty Dwyer, and Bob Nardella. As great a coach as they are, they don't have head coaching experience, which is one of the things. And it's a tough situation to walk in after winning a championship and assuming a team that had just won a championship. It's tough to run a team. There's a lot of pressure on the coach that's coming in here, and being if it's the first time behind the bench at a pro level. At any level is tough, especially when you're coming off the expectations of winning a cup. Everyone wants you set yourself up for expectations to be really high. And bringing Brock in, all my meetings with him, everything about him. Carolina had some great meetings with him, and he fit the bill that they were looking for.
Perfect. We do have some actual journalism questions that we wanted to bring to you. We will have plenty of fun ones later, but we actually were it would be kind of irresponsible if we didn't ask about some interesting things that have happened in the last year or so with the Wolves having you on the show. So we're going to pretend to be real journalists here for a second. I want to ask you about a specific player who played for the Wolves as a prospect. For context, for our listeners here, a little bit of background. Former first-round pick in 2020, Corey Pronman of The Athletic had him ranked as the Hurricanes' number 5 prospect, ahead of guys like Morgan Geekie, Jamison Reese, Joey Keane. Comes to Chicago, his first year in North America. It doesn't go great. You see some flashes, but there's plenty of work to be done. This past season, his second in North America, goes worse, and in February he's loaned to the DEL from the Chicago Wolves, with many people speculating that this is the end for him in the Hurricanes organization and possibly North American pro hockey. My question is, what happened with Dominik Bokk?
Well, a couple of things with Dominik. Unbelievable good guy, works hard. He's got the skill, it's got everything else about him, but it's the big thing about him. He just didn't make that next step in adjusting to North American hockey. What was expected of him about being on the right side on the defense, all those little things. And there was a lot of work put into him. But again, on any other team, he probably would have been playing and kept playing. But that just says how great a team we had. We had such a great team here. All our guys exceeded expectations, and kind of pushed Dominik to the side. And we feel he's still going to be a player. We still think he's a prospect. I think he just has to go back, get adjusted. And you've seen guys go back to Europe. They've had a taste of it. They kind of know what they have to do. They go back and they know they got to come back in North America and do it the North American way, in so many words, play that type of game.
All right, second player I wanted to ask you about, and I won't beat around the bush this time. It's Tarmo Reunanen. The Hurricanes traded Max Letunov to the Rangers organization on March 28th for him. He manages to get into 8 of the Wolves' last 16 games in the regular season, puts up a goal, 3 assists for 4 points in those 8 games, never sees the ice for the cup run. Season ends, he's given a qualifying offer with the Hurricanes, but goes to Liga instead. When the Wolves acquired him, from my time seeing him in Hartford, he looked like a good puck-moving defenseman that had upside. I thought he played reasonably well in the games for the Wolves that I saw, which admittedly weren't too many. But And yet no playoff games, is out of the organization. What can you tell me about Tarmo Reunanen's time in Chicago and how we kind of ended up here?
Well, what you saw in Hartford is exactly what we saw. And when I made the trade to move Letunov, and Letunov was just a great guy for us here. He did everything for us that was asked of him, and he played really well for us. But we needed an offensive defenseman, and we thought at the time we were struggling to find D. And, that same trade deadline day, Bigris came in also and didn't play a lot either. Because our D got healthy, we got a D down from Carolina, and that just says how great a team. And we got Wendell came in from Quinnipiac, so there's a lot of factors that happen, and it was depth, and we end up not having injuries in the playoffs. And you bring these guys in, and expectations were high for them. And again, it just says what kind of team we had. For him not to be in our lineup, that says how strong our defense was. And if you look at our team, as great as we were offensively, we did win the lowest goals against average in the league. So that says something about our goaltending, and probably more so about our defense system, but our defense in general, what we had here. And that we were healthy throughout the playoffs, and that's a rarity. And that's a bit of the luck that you have when you win a championship, is you have injury luck, and we had that.
The last of the journalistic questions, the hard journalism questions, as it were, for you, Wendell. But the Carolina Hurricanes, they came to be the NHL affiliate of the Chicago Wolves in a manner that, to the general public, felt very behind closed doors and a bit of cloak and dagger. Not to mention the general shock of a team moving its affiliate from being just 2.5 hours away by car, that's Raleigh to Charlotte, to being over 13 hours away by car. From your perspective, Wendell, as the Wolves GM, what kind of happened here? What was this process like?
Well, I think a part of it, there was a little bit of friction between Charlotte and Carolina. I don't think it was working out quite the way both entities felt it should be that way. And then we needed an affiliate. And what most people don't know behind closed doors is Donnie Waddell, the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes, is really good friends with the owner of the Chicago Wolves, Don Levin. So the two Dons got together, and it goes back further. It goes back to when the team came into the I. The two Dons knew each other. Then when the I moved over to the American Hockey League, we took Atlanta on as an affiliate. And that's Donnie Waddell was GM in Atlanta at the time. I was actually one of the coaches here, so I helped run training camps and development camps with Donnie. I've known Donnie Waddell for a very long time, and then I became GM, and we were still affiliated with Atlanta. So it goes back along. There's a friendship, and there's a whole background to us that we were affiliates, literally with Donnie Waddell before. And then Winnipeg bought Atlanta. And that's where it moved on from there. But I've got a long relationship with Donnie Waddell. Also, Don Levin and Donnie Waddell are really good friends. So that's where it kind of came. We kept it hush. We talked. We kind of saw it coming down the pipeline over a period of time, and we kept it quiet. I don't know, when most people from the outside looking and saying, it's just down the road. I understand that. But I think our relationship with Carolina has worked out really well for both us, the Chicago Wolves, and the Carolina Hurricanes. I think we're developing players the way they want them to develop. There's going to be players going up this year. And, we have a team that has won a championship, and I think winning teaches players a lot.
All right, then. We're going to kind of transition to some more like educational style questions here, because there's a lot about being a GM that's not necessarily like top secret, but just kind of isn't well known to a lot of fans. And we get asked these questions a lot. We're like, well, some of them we know the answers to, some of them we kind of don't. So we're going to try and work in that direction. We're going to stick with the affiliation thing in general, because affiliation changes in the AHL happen less and less often now. More teams are owned by their parent NHL team. The Wolves, being independent, though, have seen quite a few affiliation changes in recent history. Having been with the team for 4 of them now, what are some of the reasons in general that you see these affiliation shifts happen? Big picture, what does that process look like? What can you tell us about affiliation shifts kind of in a general sense?
Well, it's tough because you got to learn all the new nuances of the new team and what their expectations are. We go into it honestly. We say we want to develop your players, but we also want to win as an organization. And again, as I said before, we want to be able to make the players better by teaching them how to win, and that's bottom line. And so we go into it that way. Again, more and more teams are being owned by the NHL team. So I think there's 11 independent teams. When you start using Boston Providence, which are in like a 25-year agreement, and Hershey, Washington, and you start going down the line, there really isn't that many teams that are truly independent and available anymore. And so it really does. It's starting to close in. Changing affiliates. A couple times the NHL team bought their own American League team. So we have to find another affiliate. We were with St. Louis for 5 years, and Vegas was newly coming into the league, and their owner called our owner and worked something out. And we sit in on we negotiate what goes into an affiliation agreement. And it's like the amount of money you're paying to the NHL team for affiliation, the amount of players that are going to come your way, right down to who pays for the sticks and pucks. And there's a lot of things in there, medical stuff. This year, who pays for the rings? There's things in affiliations that are, it's not as simple as, hey, send us your players. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. And who's going to pay for the medical staff, the equipment staff, the coaching staff? Like, there's a lot of things that go into this, if you right down to who pays the post-game meals and different things like that. So there's a lot of things in affiliations. It's a lot of pages, actually. We try to keep it as basic as we can. We take care of a lot on our side, but I think every affiliate that we've had know that their players are well taken care of, and the players that have played here stay in contact with a lot of us here. I get calls from players that have been here, and they know how well they've been treated. And I always say, players that are coming out of junior or college and it's their first year pro, and the way we treat them here, and then they go to another organization, and that's we're not being treated as well as the Chicago Wolves. And I think that just comes from our ownership, that we want to treat the guys as well as can be and give them every avenue to succeed and go to the NHL.
Wendell, you've been the general manager of the Chicago Wolves for going on 13 years now. The landscape of the AHL, I mean, this is kind of a well-done statement, but the landscape and the way the game is played in general has changed a lot in that time span. What specifically are some ways you've seen the AHL and change like that? And what does it take to be a successful GM? How have you seen those two things change?
I think the biggest thing in hockey in general, but you see it in the American League more than anything, the young guys are coming in so much more prepared. They're in shape. A lot of these guys have had a personal trainer for years and years. The skill level is phenomenal. And I've had players that leave and go to Europe, and then they come back after like 4 years, and they're like standing still on the ice because they can't believe how fast it is, and everybody can skate and everybody can shoot. And that's the biggest thing about hockey. The skill level has gone up drastically. Like I always tell everyone, the American Hockey League is a world-class. We have world-class players in our league, and that's the biggest thing for me. I think the way players are handled, I think they're treated so much better, communication-wise. I think just dressing room-wise, access to all the proteins and all these things. Their travel, everything is so much better. And I was sound old when I played, but it absolutely is. It's amazing how great it is. And you know what? I'm saying that while I'm sitting in a nice office myself. And I sit in an office that I literally open my shades and I'm watching practice from in front of my desk. And how nice is that? And I don't have I know GMs back in the day had a little, closet down the hallway. We're all much better in hockey right now than a lot of years ago. But I think the biggest thing is it's younger, faster, and more skilled.
One of the things that it seems like has been, at least from the outside kind of looking in, that has always been kind of tricky is making trades. How difficult is it to make trades in the AHL, given that a lot of players aren't on NHL deals? I imagine you can't just, send Jack Drury to Hartford and everyone's okay with that. But if you wanted to make a trade just involving guys on AHL deals, do you still need to like run that up the chain, or do you have the kind of autonomy to do that when, guys on two-way deals come involved? How, what does that process in general of making trades at the AHL level work?
Well, basically, I have a rough idea who they're willing to move, who it's okay if I make a trade and I go and make calls. That just happened with Letunov. I was able to make a deal and I call Carolina. I go, here's what I have on the table. Are you guys okay with it? They okayed it, of course. But it's and there's NHL guys like that. And I guess, I go, I know he's not a prospect for you now. You don't see him as a prospect. Are you okay me moving him? And you do it. You make trades. I've literally one of my own signings, and I've actually traded a guy for a steak dinner, but that's another thing. I was moving him for future considerations, but I just told the GM, I go, I'm helping you out, and then he asked me what I wanted. Thought I wanted a player back or something, and I said, no, it's future. But next time I'm in your city, you owe me a steak dinner.
That segues really well into our next question. Because speaking of trades, future considerations is something that we see as an asset in trades all the time, especially if you're the Belleville Senators and Ottawa. But many people don't really seem to understand what exactly it means. It could mean a steak dinner, apparently, as Wendell just spilled the beans there. But, it looks like their team traded for some magic beans or a steak dinner. That's going to come up. That's going to keep coming up. Don't mind me. But future considerations also seem to have different meanings at different levels of minor league hockey. Why would someone take future considerations in the AHL, and what in general does that mean when you trade for or trade them away, aside from a steak dinner?
Well, future considerations most of the time is just you gotta trade something. You can't just give somebody away. So it's future. Like it usually doesn't come to fruition, the future considerations. But sometimes it's like on the next trade, you owe me a player. It's a gentleman's agreement almost when you really think about it. Now I know at the East Coast level, there's future considerations, and there's already a deal done. Players stay on a team in the East Coast League, and then after everything's said and done, there's a trade at the end of the season, and that's your future. It's already agreed upon. The only person that doesn't know about it is the player that's going to be traded. Yeah, that happens a few times that I've heard of. But yeah, future is usually just you got to move something, and it's just you say it's for future considerations, and it's just a token trade equity, I guess, as a future.
One thing we also see a lot in the AHL every season are PTOs and ATOs, professional tryouts and amateur tryouts. But that seems to be all the general public really knows about them, is like it's a tryout agreement. But can you elaborate a little bit more on what they entail, what their limits are, who you can give them to, what benefit that gives the player, the team, that kind of thing?
Well, amateur tryout is what it is. It's amateur. You're not supposed to be paying the player, so it's an amateur tryout. So there's not a pro. That's the difference in it. And it's for a junior kid, that say a Carolina draft pick. He's 18 years old. After his junior year is over, he can come play the playoffs for us and go back to junior, because he came here as an amateur, and he'll leave as an amateur and go back to junior. A PTO is basically during the season, you bring somebody in. Like if I call somebody after the East Coast League, that's an East Coast League contract. I put them on a PTO. I don't sign them to a standard players contract, which would bind me for the whole year of having them under contract. The PTO, it's for 25 games, and I can release them whenever I feel fit, and I can send them back down. So if I needed, if I was short a player and I called my affiliate and said, I need this player, bring him in, I'll put him on a PTO, and it could be a game or two, or it could be 5 games later, and I send him back to my affiliate, and I just release him from his PTO. PTOs are beneficial for the teams because they get to have the player and get a look at him. But after 25 games, you can put them on another one, but most of the time after 25 games, you're going to flip them to a standard players contract. And again, players that are done their college career, they'll come in and we'll put them on a PTO for the rest of the season, and they get paid. And then usually it'll flip to a standard players contract the next year. But the ETO is the amateur and a PTO is pro.
Wendell, I swear you're reading off of our outline and you don't even have access to it, because we're plugging along. We're segging pretty well from one category to the next. Standard player contracts, every offseason we see these contracts get announced that were signed a long time ago, sometimes up to half a season ago. What's the reason for the delay in the announcements? Is it all a marketing thing, or is there kind of a hockey ops reason to it?
Well, there's a few reasons. Sometimes the agreements, you got a verbal agreement that you can't put down on paper because it's not free agency yet. I know that happens out there. But sometimes when you put guys on NHL contracts, the NHL team doesn't have enough contracts until July 1st. They have a 50 contract limit, and you look at if you see during the season, a lot of teams are 47, 48, 49. Some are right at 50. They don't have contracts, so they got to wait to some contracts expire. They don't qualify some players. Some players end up getting traded. So the contracts, you got to wait to a certain time to let contracts expire so they can announce those. Some teams hold on and keep it quiet because they're trying to negotiate with player B. And they don't want player A to know what player B, let them know what he's getting, so they can do comparables. And there's a few GMs in the NHL I know that hold on and they don't announce their for quite a while until they get all their players done. So players can't play off each other when they're negotiating. But and some of it is just the timing. It's what's a good time to get some media coverage of it. We've had things happen here in Chicago. We were going to announce something, and the Cubs won the World Series. So okay, we're putting that off for a couple of weeks. Different things happen. Something big happens with one of the other sports entities, or just generally something big in the world. You got to hold off for a while and let the dust settle. And we've picked a Monday or a Tuesday because it's quiet time for all the other sports sometimes, and we're able to get some traction out of it at a certain time.
Speaking of offseason moves here, every offseason we see veteran AHL player movement, and a lot of times that feels really random. One of the ones that's pretty common is we see guys taking a Euro trip. When players in general leave the AHL to go to Europe, is there a conversation with you about it, or do guys just kind of sign somewhere like Liga and then you find out on Twitter like the rest of us? Or is there a little more?
Towards the last part of the regular season, you start hearing guys are being approached, and what happens? I'll get a call from somebody from Europe. I know agents in Europe, and they'll call me. They're going, "Hey, tell me about this guy." And I go, "Well, I guess he's looking over in Europe." Or agents will say, "Do you think he's going to be coming back with you because he has a deal pending over there?" Some guys are already signed before our regular season's even over. Most of the time, when guys go back to Europe, unless they're going back to be in their hometown type thing if they're European themselves, but most go over there for the money, and that's basically what it is, and I don't blame them if they've put the dream of the NHL in their back pocket and went and go over there. It's more for the money, and I don't blame them. Like if you only have a certain amount of time, and if you don't feel like you're making the amount of money you deserve in North America, then I don't blame them for going over to Europe and looking after themselves, looking after their family, and that's what happens sometimes. And but we see it if they're not getting the money they think they deserve here, and or some of them are getting older and they play less games in Europe. They have like a 40-something games a year, and maybe it's an educational thing where they can be in Switzerland and go around to a bunch of countries in the off days and whatnot. There's a lot of factors why guys go over there. Most of the time you got an idea the guys are going because you hear it's hockey world's not that big. It seems big, but it's not. And you hear a lot of rumors, and a lot of guys will tell you, I'm going to end up signing over here or there, or they'll ask for advice. Like, should I stay or should I go? And, you try to be as honest as you can with them. And, the first thing I would say, if you kind of lost the dream of playing in the NHL, and if they say, yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to get there, I'm like, okay, then you know what? It's time to do what's best for you and your family.
Absolutely. Got to secure the bag there when, you have only so many years of being a professional athlete. Not all of us can be Jaromir Jagr and Gordie Howe. We can play until we're 100. Second big question with veteran player movement. We see guys switch teams in the offseason all the time, whether it's going from, and when that's going from an AHL contract to a two-way NHL deal or a one-way NHL deal, there's no mystery there. I mean, Andrew Podorowski signs a one-way deal this offseason. You, as the GM of the Wolves, not offer him a one-way NHL deal. It makes sense that, that's why you see guys like that make moves. But then there are a lot of times where you see like a player just basically take another AHL contract in a different team, and then the next offseason does the same thing, goes from team to team to team, even though they're, quality performers. I mean, we saw this from guys like Daniel Carr, TJ Tynan, Chris Terry. Do you have any insights as to why guys, don't end up staying with teams when they've had success on that team? And at least as far as we can tell, they're not like a bad teammate or a pain in the ass in the locker room?
No, there's a couple factors on that. The NHL team is not willing to pay him that kind of money anymore. They thought they were going to be a prospect and maybe be that call-up guy, and they end up not being that call-up guy. So they'll try their luck with another veteran. The NHL team will put him in the American League, and hopefully he'll be their depth guy to call up. But the other part is, they're chasing opportunity. You mentioned a couple guys that I know for a fact they're chasing opportunity. They look at the teams that are offering them contracts, and they're going where there's more opportunity. They're still living the dream of playing in the NHL. As long as the money is relatively close, they're going to go to where the best opportunity to play in the NHL. They're making good money in the American Hockey League any way around it, but it's a chance to play in the NHL. And that's, I think, again, almost everybody in the American Hockey League, their dream is to play in the NHL. So they're trying to set them. They have the ability, because they're free agents, to go to where the best opportunity is for them to maybe break the team. And again, you use Podorowski. He has a chance to make Seattle, and that was the big thing for him. He had another offer from another NHL team on a one-way also, and he chose Seattle because it's the best opportunity for him to play in the NHL. And still going to get the money wherever he's at, but the best opportunity was Seattle for him. I know TJ Tynan. He's the same thing. I've made offers to him, and with the same I've had TJ, and I love TJ as a person and as a player, but he went to where he sees the best opportunity for him to get some games in the NHL. And I literally matched or offered him more over the last few years, and he's actually ended up in a thing. And TJ lives in Chicago here and everything like that. But I don't hold it against him, because he's going for, he's going to basically make the same amount of money, but he's going to have a better opportunity to get to the NHL. And he can't hold back anybody that still lives the dream and wants to play there and puts in the time and the effort to try to get up there.
I mean, for sure, that was one of the things when we were talking about, like, kind of in our postmortems for teams of, who's coming back and who's not. And it's like, it's going to be interesting to see how many, AHL veterans flock to places like Tucson or Laval, because or Rockford, where it's like their NHL clubs are clearly in maybe don't win games mode. And that usually tends to lend itself to guys getting called up from the roster. And we thought, if there's a shot for you to, play the season in Tucson and get a call from the Coyotes just because, well, we, why not see what this guy can offer us at the NHL level? I was surprised to not see just that big wave of guys kind of going there looking to do exactly that. But, their calculus on how to get to the show is probably a little bit different than mine, having never played hockey in a way that would even end me with a hockey DB page. So I can respect that.
Well, a few of it, like a little bit of it, is they might not want to bring in too many veterans, the NHL team, onto the American League team, for they want to develop all their young guys, few select veterans, and maybe some of the guys might not have got the offer. That's what happens sometimes. It's not like everyone's flocking to Tucson because they think Phoenix is bad. They want to play on a team that wins also. That's a part of it too. So, that all, there's a lot of factors that plays into, and you see it in the NHL, free agency, not just the American Hockey League, but in free agency in the NHL. There's a lot of factors. You see guys sitting back and they'll say, it was what's best for my family. I had a better deal somewhere else, but this was the perfect fit. I thought this was the best fit, and it happens in the American Hockey League also. Like, what's the best fit for to make the NHL, to be on a good team, and what's best for his family and his future.
Let's talk a little bit, Wendell, about your career as a player. You played in the AHL and the IHL at various points in your career. Do you remember there being any big differences between the two leagues at that time as a player that you can remember?
I think the biggest thing is, and it was done on purpose by the American League. We have a veteran rule. We are only allowed 6 players over 260 pro games in our league, and it was done on purpose by the American League to be a developmental league, to distinguish the American League from the International League back in the day. International League was a lot of older guys. I ended up in the I when I was 30, I think 31, 32. But that's what happens. I think one year on the Chicago Wolves, we had something like 15 players, 30 and over. So the I was an older league. Like, everyone knew each other, and that's basically what it was. Even though there was affiliations, there was a lot of older players in the I, and that's to the credit of the American Hockey League. They declared themselves a developmental league, and that's how they saddled up to most NHL teams, because they said we are in a position to develop your prospects, unlike the International League, where they're just putting a bunch of older guys on a team and they don't care about your prospects. That's the way they posed it to the NHL, and eventually became a merger. The I, 5 or 6 teams came over, and I actually played in the last game of the old International League. We played in the finals against Orlando, and in game 5 or 6 in Orlando, we lost to Orlando, which was Donnie Waddell's team, and then the team that just beat us in the finals became our affiliate. That year, we ended up winning the Calder Cup. Now, going back to the Donnie Waddell thing, so they went in Orlando. The last year of the I, they went in Orlando against the Chicago Wolves, and they come and be our affiliate in Chicago. They win it the first year in Chicago. What happened in Charlotte? We lost to Charlotte in the finals. Donnie Waddell's team in Charlotte. We take on Donnie Waddell's team, and we win the Calder Cup right after that too. So there's a lot of similarities when you talk about how this all went down. There's a lot of similarities of how things happened, but that's the biggest difference in the leagues. I think it was age more than anything.
What would you say are the biggest differences between playing in the minors when you were a player compared to what it's like for players now?
I'm going to sound old again. They are treated unbelievable. I shouldn't say I wasn't treated good, but the amenities that are here, just the workout areas, like our dressing room, we've got a steam room, a sauna, a hot tub, underwater treadmill. We have our own weight room, lounge area. It's unbelievable what our dressing room's like. And, we have 2 ice surfaces at our practice rink. It's everything around the players, nutrition. There's supplements everywhere. There's meals. When I was playing, there was no pregame meals. We were running. I remember Wendy's used to have all you can eat pasta bar. So it was like $3.99, I think, when I played, and it was a lineup of our whole team at the pasta bar. Like, we had to give the Wendy's the warning before practice we were coming in, because that was it. We just scrambled for food, and nothing after the game. Like, jump on a bus and it'd be greasy wings, and just everything about it. There was one coach back in the day. Now we have 3 coaches, and we have a video coach, and we have a strengths coach, and we have a goalie coach, and so it's just everything is more conducive for the players to succeed. And, I talked about earlier that it starts from our ownership, that we want to give the players every chance to win and get better and succeed and get to the NHL. And that's what's a lot different these days than it used to be. And sometimes it's frustrating, and it's like, you should be able to do some stuff on your own, but the things that are done for the players, and it's basically, sometimes all these meals and all this nutrition. And somebody said, if you own a Lamborghini, you got to put the right fuel in it, and that's what happens. And I understand it. I just I guess I'm jealous a bit, because I wish I had all that stuff for me back in the day. And the goalie equipment is so much lighter than I'd be at the end of the first, and I think I put on like 5 or 6 pounds, and how wet my pads are. I probably lost 5 or 6 pounds weight wise, but my pads got heavier as the game went on. The equipment is unbelievable these days for the players.
All right, we would be remiss if we didn't ask you for some stories or memories of guys you've had the privilege to play with or work with as a GM. I was hoping we'd give you a few names here and hope you tell us a bit about what they were maybe like behind the scenes, a story or two that won't have them texting you like, Wendell, what did you do? So a couple names here. CC, kick us off.
Yeah. We're going to start with current Chicago Wolves assistant coach, Bob Nardella. Brought him up earlier.
Well, Bobby's unbelievable. Like he's a small stature, but he played big. And I don't say big because of hitting guys, but he had the longest stick to this day when he probably has the longest stick on the team. And that's a big thing. And his, I don't know if you know, his boy is a big prospect for the Washington Capitals. Unbelievable offensive defenseman that played for Notre Dame, and he's with Hershey. He's got a chance to make the Washington Capitals this year. But same type of player. But Bobby's unbelievable. Like he's a true Wolf through and through, and especially as a coaching. And he's unbelievable for bringing the new staff in. Like Patty Dwyer and Ryan Warsofsky came into our dressing room, not knowing Chicago and everything. He just acclimated these guys, and he acclimates the players, and just an unbelievable player. And, I got to tell the new players that are coming in, like I go read up on Bobby Nardella. I go, he's played in the Olympics. He represented Italy a few times in the Olympics. Was an all-star in the IHL. Like look up, he was, and if you really want to know, I go, he was a top scoring centerman in USHL. He became a defenseman in college because he got in a little trouble on the team, and the coach said the only way you're staying on the team, I need defensemen. I need you to go back and play D, and that's how he ended up coming to D. So there's a little tidbit about Bobby Nardella, and it actually worked out well for him because we talk about stuff and how he's at the Olympics and sitting in the cafeteria and looking over and seeing all the NHL guys, and then going out that night and playing against them. So all the NHL Hall of Famers and superstars, and you got a chance to represent Italy proudly. But it's unbelievable having him in the organization on a lot of levels, not just his hockey, but what he brings to the organization off the ice.
All right, next up, we have longtime assistant coach in the AHL for the Americans, Marlies, Rampage, and Falcons, and former Iowa Chops head coach, Gord Dineen.
Gordy is one of my – when you sit back and think of guys in your career that are unbelievable guys on your team, and you always remember. And I was, if I don't talk to Gordy for a long time and I see him, he's like, I saw him yesterday. He's like unbelievable person. He, great friend, but it just gave it everything he had. And, coming from that lineage of the Dineens, like all the Dineen, his dad is everything about, the Dineen family. It speaks for itself, how great of people they are. And Gord just, played so hard every game, and it was a pleasure when he came in. I was with him in Pittsburgh, and then when we got him in a trade to Chicago here, it was actually the trade that kind of changed our team and gave us a chance to win a championship. It was Gord, and just it's hard to describe when you say good guy, but he was phenomenal, and to this day he's phenomenal. He's just on and off the ice. Like he just did everything right. And that's the type of person he is. A little story about his dad. We were playing in Pittsburgh and we were going into Philadelphia, and his dad's team, he was coaching in Adirondack, and they were down 3-0, and they were playing the next night. And he said, if we win the next night, he goes, we're going to come back and win the series. And sure enough, they won 4. They were down 3-0. They come back and win the next 4 in the finals and won it. We're true to his form. He said, if we win them all night, we're going to win the Calder Cup, and that's what they did. I still remember the story, sitting in the hall in the old Spectrum, and I'm like, your dad's crazy. Well, I was the one that was crazy because he actually ended up going to do it. Bill was true to his word.
Was that when they were the Adirondack Red Wings?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, that sounds right. Wow. Yeah. All right, well, let's go with the next one. Former New York Islanders franchise goaltender and currently still on the payroll, Rick DiPietro.
For how long? I don't know.
It's 2030, I think.
Yeah, it's unbelievable when your goalie partner becomes GM. I'm in Gareth Snow. They were out in the golf course and made the deal. But Ricky, I liked Ricky a lot, and I'm going to say some things that, like, I got kind of asked some things sometimes, and I got quoted the wrong way sometimes. But I love Ricky here. He's a lot of fun, just like fun as can be, and he's kind of like the loud guy that comes in the room, and he's always saying things to people. But at the same time, he kind of picks on himself too, and he did different things. And I remember one time we were in Kansas City, and he was getting called up to the Islanders, and Sports Illustrated was following us, and I kind of came in and just said, somebody said they need 2 seats for Ricky, one for him and one for his ego, and his ego's in first class. And he knew right away that it was me. I was saying somebody said it. He just goes, that's actually a pretty good one. I think it actually made Sports Illustrated, but and it didn't sound good because I sound like I was ripping on Ricky, but it was just the way we were. Like, we were partners, and we got along unbelievable. Like, he would do things, and I'd look at him, he goes, I shouldn't do that, right? And I go, no, don't do that. And I go, Ricky, I don't understand why I'm supposed to be your mentor. Or, like, I was literally 36, he was 18, so I was twice his age. I'm a righty, he's a lefty. He's good looking with hair. I'm not. Like, you name it, he's rich, I'm not. I go, Ricky, I can go through a million things how we're different, but I'm supposed to be here mentoring you. I don't get it. So, but Ricky was unbelievable to be around for me. Like, he was fun. Did certain things. Like, I remember we were pulling to a city, and it was something in one of the windows of a store. He goes, I'm going to go do that. And I go, what? Next, come to the rink that night. He's got dreadlocks. And he's just like, I'm going, Ricky, seriously? He goes, no. I go, you're not going on the bench like that. He goes, no, this is just for the boys. He goes, just for the boys to laugh at me. And I go, okay. And he had a hat on, and no one in the rink knew he had dreadlocks. And then we go like 3 or 4 days later, he takes the dreadlocks out. Now he's got like a hair everywhere for the national anthem. Like, it was the biggest hair I've ever seen. But just to pick on himself and have a laugh. And that's the type of guy he was. Like, I got nothing good to say about Ricky. I know he has stories about him, how, I was kind of high on himself, but he was awesome. He was awesome to be around. And he had a credit card that said Bobby Orr on it. So I had a lot of respect. Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr is my hero. And I actually almost stole his credit card because it said Bobby Orr, because that was his agent, and he didn't have his own credit card. It had Bobby Orr, and I almost stole his credit card just because it said Bobby Orr.
Oh, all right.
The man is getting paid $1.5 million until 2028-29.
Yeah.
So get that
That's
bag.
not
Ricky.
a real year. The Earth will have melted the Earth will have like been absorbed by the sun by that year. So
those New York contracts, Bobby Bonilla and Ricky DiPietro.
Yep.
Think about it. Like, it's unbelievable. I should have played there. I could have been kept getting paid by the teams.
All right. Man. Next up on the list here, Hockey Hall of Famer Al MacInnis.
Unbelievable person, unbelievable player, as I'm saying about everybody that you've brought up. He's actually from Nova Scotia, where I'm from, and lived together for 3 years in junior. So it was another guy that played a long time in the NHL, still a really good friend, and Al's a really good friend. The three of us lived together in junior in Kitchener with the Allen family in Kitchener. We actually lost the Memorial Cup our first year as rookies, and then we won the Memorial Cup the next year in Kitchener. And the three of us, they used to call us the Coastal Kids or the Maritime Mafia, because we kind of ran the team, and we came in, and we had a lot of guys surrounding us. Of course, the year we won the Memorial Cup, Dave Shaw played was one of my defensemen, which I don't know, played probably 15 years of pro hockey. I don't know how many, like probably 10, 12 years in the NHL, whatever he played. The other two defensemen were Hall of Famer Al MacInnis and Scott Stevens. So my defense were pretty good in junior, but Al was unbelievable. Like in junior, you could see it, and he had one focus was playing the NHL. He had no other focus but hockey, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame as a person and as a player. And I was always the starter in junior, and I was really happy about that, because he'd come in, just take wrist shots on me, and then go down the other end and just blast his bomb of a shot on the other goalie, the backup goalie. And I go, I never want to be a backup on Al MacInnis' team. And you know what? Actually, we were in Calgary. I was with Pittsburgh and playing Calgary, and a puck came from behind the net out to him, and he hit a one-timer, and it was on edge. And I've never been afraid of a puck in a game, except he hit that one, and it actually skimmed right across my mask, and I think it went up the top of the Saddle Dome. And I looked at him, he looked at me, and we were both scared. So he probably had 5 or 6 more chances during that game, and he wouldn't take a slap shot. He took wrist shots. So game's over. We go for a few beers, and I go, hey, I got to ask you, man. I go, you could have shot the puck so many times. You just took wrist shots. And he goes, I was so scared on that shot. He goes, if I would have hit you, I might have killed you. He goes, we wouldn't be having a beer. And I go, I wouldn't doubt it. He hit that thing so hard, and it's the one time I can say in a game I was afraid of a shot. I've been afraid of shots in practice, of course, but in a game, never. And that I shouldn't say never anymore, because that was the one time that I actually was afraid. Say he hit me, I don't know what would have happened.
Wow. Wow. That kind of took me back. I gotta collect myself here. Moving on to the next player, of course, we're going to start getting into some of your Penguins teammates. The eternally young and forever unretired future Hockey Hall of Famer, Jaromir Jagr.
Looking at him now, it just tells me how old I am, because he came in as an 18-year-old, barely speak the language, like so naive, and all of a sudden he grew up pretty fast, hockey-wise and personal-wise, and just a fun guy to be around. Loves life, great teammate. He when I was retired and he was doing autograph sessions in Chicago here, and I brought my kids over and some friends over, and like, I swear he wanted to go play hockey with the kids instead of hanging around and having a beer, because he's a kid. I can see why he's still playing, because he's still a kid by heart. And but just the way he handled the puck, it's unbelievable. And then his conditioning, it was it was legendary when he was in. Especially when he went to Florida. I heard a thing that Del Talon said, that GM in Florida was more about not just the talent he brought, but it was about the leadership, and he showed how the young guys, what it took to play, to be in shape, and to work hard and do all the extra stuff. And look, he's still playing. The Cloudnote team is he's still going, and he's a guy that loved playing the game. Like, as skilled as he was, he played it because he loved it.
We will end with the obvious one here. The savior of Pittsburgh himself, Mario Lemieux.
Well, not much I can say about him that hasn't been said. How many sports people saved a franchise as a player and then as an owner? Like, it doesn't happen. And unbelievable teammate, and just looked after everyone around him without arrogance, which was really nice. And so I was in a card game with him. I'll give you a quick story on him. I was in a card game with him, and I'm making, I think it was like 100,000, 110,000, and he's making like 2.6 million at the time, besides endorsements and all that stuff. So I was making 120, he was making 2.4. So we're playing a card game, and whenever I lost, I paid up right away. And so he lost $100 to me, and I said, Mario, up with the 100. He goes, I'll pay. I go, no, up with the 100. I pay you. And he goes, I'll pay. I go, no, up with it now. I pay you right up. I pay my debts up right away. He goes, $100 is a lot of money to you. And I said, yeah. And I go, Mario, what I make in 1 year, what you make in 1 year, I have to play 20 years in the NHL. I said, he goes, what? I said, you make 2.4 million. I make 120,000. I said, I literally got to play pro hockey for 20 years to make what you make in 1 year, besides your endorsements and everything else, deferred money and everything like that. And I calculated for a while, goes in his pocket, he picks out 200. He gives me $200. You only owed me 100, but here's 2. I feel bad for you. You're so poor. But yeah, but he's unbelievable. Like, just, there was so much pressure on him media wise. And I don't think, I really think Mario wanted to be known as the best player that ever played the game, but he didn't want all the peripheral stuff of the media, and he always wanted to be seen as the greatest and portrayed as the greatest and all that. But he didn't really want to be in that spotlight of doing the extra stuff, all the interviews, and I don't think he really enjoyed that. And but he did it probably reluctantly a lot of times. But for him just to be play under certain circumstances. Like his back was, he couldn't even walk sometimes, and he was playing, and he was going for the point streak. And I remember being in Madison Square Gardens, he took a shift or two he was just playing the power play at the time. And he got to the bench and he goes, "That's it." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I can't go anymore." And that's it. And he just left the bench and he couldn't play again. And then he had surgery and then there was infections and this and that for him to come back, and then having Hodgkin's disease and coming back after being retired from, just you name the things with him. And it tells you why he's such a great player. But he was just one of us in the dressing room. Like, I could tell him, go stick it as much as anybody else. And that's the way, we all were on that team. The Mario thing for me, it just showed you what kind of player. Like, he was blocking shots in the playoffs. And he got back to the bench. And I go, "Who are you?" I go, "Blocking shots." He goes, "Scary one. I want to play defense too, right?" I go, "Yeah, it is pretty scary." But we were in before game 6 in Minnesota. And we were in Minnesota, and this is in the finals. And if we win that night, we win the Stanley Cup. And, everyone's in the room going, we don't want to go to game 7 back at home. You don't know what's going to happen, refereeing or injuries or, bad luck. And everyone's going on and on and on. And Mario's not saying a word. And finally, he just looks up. He goes, "Boys, there will be no game 7. I was like, "Oh, okay. If Mario says there's no game 7, there's not going to be a game 7. We end up winning the game, I think, 8-0. So that tells you, like, when he wanted to turn it on, it was scary.
Wow. Oh, well, from your playing career to more in general, to kind of wrap up our interview here, Wendell, you've got a really impressive trophy case. You've got a Memorial Cup, you've got a couple Turner Cups from the IHL days, playoffs MVP, a number of Calder Cups now as GM. You've got a Bastion Award for AHL's best goaltender. Or actually, I guess that was that back in it was AHL's best goaltender. Yeah. Because you played in the IHL. I got a little confused there. Yeah. Back between the two. And of course, can't discount the 2 Stanley Cup rings, of course. But out of all of that hardware that you have in your trophy case, which one or ones mean the most to you?
Well, they all mean differently. Let's face it, that I think every kid wants to play in the NHL and win a Stanley Cup. So the NHL probably win a Stanley Cup is probably the biggest, but they all hold something, special. The Memorial Cup is probably the hardest of them all because you're limited by years. Basically you have a 3-year, for the most part, you have a 3-year window to win a Memorial Cup, and you just don't have to win your league. So you win your league, and then you got to play against 2 other leagues and a host team to try to win a Memorial Cup. So that was, I think, one of the best accomplishments. Winning 12 straight in Hershey. I didn't lose a playoff game in Hershey when we won it, is really big. Winning the championship in the I, and then had a chance to be a part of those 4 different types of championships was quite an accomplishment. And again, I know how fortunate I've been in my career. On the ice and, as a coach and as in management, I've been real fortunate. I've told many people many times, I should be buying lottery tickets. I seem to be in the right place at the right time. And, but my career, I look at a lot of people and I almost have some guilt because there's some unbelievable hockey people that never had a chance to experience a championship. And, I've been around, I think this year is my 9th championship. So I've been really fortunate to be part of so many great teams, great organizations, and again, very lucky because anybody that wins a championship, there's a lot of luck to go with it, whether it's referee luck, puck luck, injury luck, you name it. You got to have a lot of luck to go along with all the talent. And, and again, I've never seen a team win with a bunch of idiots. It's usually a bunch of really good guys, and I'm saying that politely because you know what, every team I've been on, it's a unbelievable group of guys that got along really well off ice, and it just spilled onto the on ice too. Guys backed each other up and everything like that. And, every team I'm on, I might not see a guy for years and years, and it's like I saw them yesterday, and that's a great feeling to have. And like we talked about Gord Dineen, I'll be walking down a hallway and he'll be 50 feet away from me, and we'll start laughing without a word being said, just stupid stuff that we've done over time, and they're just laughing. We'll just start laughing and for no reason. Just we don't even know what story's going through each other's head, but we're laughing. So, but yeah, I've been really going back. I've been really, really blessed to be on so many winning teams and being a part of being a small part of every winning team.
And I mean, after hearing about that giant trophy case and all the accomplishment you had, I mean, if it were me after that second cup in Pittsburgh, I'd have said, I'm good. I'd have retired to some tropical island nation, maybe start a youth hockey program, spend half my day there, the other half of my day on the beach with, a lovely drink in my hand. You played 9 seasons after that and have gone into a 20-year career in hockey operations. After your Calder Cup championship this past season, what motivates you to just keep going?
Well, if anybody's ever been on a winning team, they know the feeling. I love winning. I always tell the players, I go, when my kids were younger, I had a hard time letting them win goldfish or at a game of checkers. I hate losing and I love winning. And it takes a lot to win, but when you do win, the sense of accomplishment is unbelievable. The sense of accomplishment for our team this year, winning the Calder Cup, not just from my perspective, helping putting players there, but just everything that goes along with it, all the hard work and stuff that goes on. And you got to love to win. You got to have the drive to win. And I really, we spoke about guys going to Europe. If they lose the dream of playing the NHL, then it's time to move on. It's the same thing. If I lose the drive that I don't want my team to win and, be upset after losses and if losses aren't bugging me, then I think it's time for me to move on. And, that's where I'm at. I think that's what motivates me. I just love having a good team. I absolutely love winning and winning a championship. It's a great accomplishment that you have bragging rights for a whole year after winning it. So it's a nice feeling. It's a proud thing because it takes a lot to win, especially these days when you look. There's the NHL and the AHL. There's 31 other teams trying to win that trophy, and that's for you to be the only one out of 32. That's quite an accomplishment.
And Wendell, I'd be remiss. I failed to mention that you also won a Calder Cup as a player as well when you were with Hershey. So forgive me for that. I focused more on the Turner Cups and forgot to mention the Calder Cup, but another feather in your cap, as it were. But last question from me. Now, Chicago Wolves coming into the IHL in 1994, that was kind of part of the downfall of the International, was the fact that you had these minor pro teams that sometimes competed directly in the same market with NHL teams. And Chicago coming in 94, 95, you've got the NHL lockout and everything like that. How did they survive, moving on to 2001 and, getting an expansion franchise, merging essentially into the AHL? How did Chicago survive from 94 to 2001? How did they become, how do I put this? How did they establish that foundation to succeed in a market that also had the Chicago Blackhawks in it?
Well, I think it was, first of all, with the Chicago Wolves, I think it was a perfect storm, and you alluded to it, that there was a NHL lockout. And that's how actually I ended up with the Wolves during that lockout. I was with Tampa, and I came down here to play during the NHL lockout. But so there's no hockey, no pro hockey, and it happened to happen the first year of the Wolves, luckily. In opening night, I think we were close to sold out. We had sold out a lot of times, and we got people interested. And we were on TV. Every one of our games were on TV. The Hawks weren't on TV at the time. I'd go into with minor hockey kids, and my kids everyone knew the Wolves players. Everyone knew Steve Malte. They couldn't name me a player on the Hawks because no one went to the games. And no one saw them on TV. You couldn't watch it on TV. I haven't been to a Red Sox game in years, but there's players on there. You know what I mean? Because you watch it on TV. If the games aren't on TV, then it's hard to relate. But all the kids in hockey, we're in the suburbs. We have a different price point. I think our entertainment's unbelievable. Like, you go to a game, and people would tell me they'd go to a game, and I go, "Do we win or lose?" And they would go, "Don't remember, but I had one hell of a time." And that's what it's about. Our music's great. Our fireworks before the game's great. Like, the fans are entertained constantly at our games, and that's what made it great. And again, affordability and accessibility. Our players are accessible to all the fans. It's part of my speech before the season. And you walk out the same door where everyone knows you're coming out, win or lose. You walk out and you sign autographs. You should thank them for asking for your autograph. Don't, one day you'll be hoping someone would ask for your autograph. So, you don't turn away, people from autographs and stuff. So, but that's that's kind of our mantra here is to be accessible, be fan friendly. Again, we're in the suburbs. We have a different demographic than the Hawks. And then we end up winning. We had good teams in here, and at the time the Hawks were struggling, and so everything was the perfect storm for us to survive. And and even when the Hawks were doing well, we were still doing well, and we actually want the Hawks to do well. When the NHL team's doing well and we're doing well, hockey's vibrant in the city, and it just draws more interest to the hockey itself and more people playing hockey. So there's never a time where we want bad on the Hawks. We want both teams to be really, really good. And it's kind of almost like what I said to my goalie partners my whole time. Some goalies are really competitive, and I said, listen, I want you to play unbelievable every game. I don't want bad on you. I don't want you letting goals and all this stuff, just because if you do, then the team's not winning. I just know when I'm playing, I want to play better than you. And simple as that. So that was the competitive things. I don't want bad on my, some other goalies don't, they want bad on their partner. I never want bad on my partner. That's my turn. And it's simple as that. And that's the way we feel here in the city. And again, we are big group orientated and fan friendly for families.
I was about to say that was a very good answer, but a long way of saying Bill Wirtz did us good.
You said it.
Anyways, that is all we have for you, Wendell. Thank you so much for giving us an exorbitant amount of time, especially, as the season is starting to get ramped up here. This is only our second episode back from a 2-month layoff. So we're getting back into the swing of things as well. We really appreciate you coming on, answering a lot of our questions here, having some fun with us.
Guys, I appreciate it every time. I have fun coming on with you guys. I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate what you do for hockey and the American League in general, and getting people interested in some inside knowledge. And that's the big thing. Get behind people are never usually down under the stands. And that's what I always tell the people when I bring them down by the dressing room. Like, they don't see the inner guts of a stadium. And maybe a little bit of this shows maybe the inner guts of being a GM or on a hockey team.
Well, it is a pipe dream of ours to maybe have a traveling road show someday in the distant future, when we have things like sponsors or professionalism. Then we will hope to, if we ever make our way to Chicago, we will make sure that we attend a Wolves game and say hello.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm sure that this will not be the last time that we bring you on the podcast to have a chat. But once again, Wendell, thank you so much. Good luck to Chicago this offseason. We know that you will keep it interesting for us at the very minimum.
Okay, guys. Appreciate it, as always.
All right.
Thank you, Wendell. That will do it for the show. Thank you all for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, even pro wrestling programs at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click on the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. That's the sound of the big old list populating there. And after you do that, click on one and enjoy. And as always, thanks for choosing us with all the great podcasts out there. Making time for us. We appreciate it.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page, which is definitely now scrolling below. But for those in the audio version, it is linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So he can help make music for you too. Cece, where can people find you?
Well, my name is Cece Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL. Been doing our best to keep you updated on all the AHL news and transactions that have happened. And all 32 of our player trackers are live on fullpresshockey.com. So you can check out that Twitter site. You can also check me out at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's at SEESEEHAWK. Mainly about hockey, of course, but I like pro wrestling. I like prog rock, Genesis, Rush. If it keeps me interested, hopefully it's not going to be bullshit for you. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network and the writing, of course, of all of our great AHL staff over there. Once again, fullpresshockey.com. If you want to focus on the AHL, throw in the / AHL at the end of that. Sean, enough about me. Where can the people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien 81. That's SeanObrien 81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien _81. You can find my stats work on Tableau at bit.ly/data dump and chase. When the season gets going, that will be all of the graphs, the charts, the whole shebang. It's right there. That is bit.ly/data dump and chase, all lowercase, all one word. Cece, we had a good time. I hope the folks learned something with us, but it is time for you to take us home.
Absolutely. That will do it once again for episode number 109 for the Calder Farmstead, an AHL podcast. Special thanks once again to Wolves GM Wendell Young for hopping on the program once again. He's becoming an old friend. We really appreciate his time coming on the show and dispensing the wisdom that he did. So for all of our viewers and listeners, thanks once again for tuning into the show. And as always, keep your stick on the ice.